Did you hear about the new arrival, Zix-9? The alien student buzzed, antennae twitching with excitement. Blowbacks rolled all 7 of their eyes at once, a feat that always amazed their classmates. Oh great, another rare, exotic species from a backwater planet, they quipped sarcastically, rolling their voice with mock enthusiasm. The small group of extraterrestrial students sat in a corner of the lively cafeteria, their various limbs wrapped around steaming cups of nutrient paste. The Galactic Academy of Xenobiology was famous for its diverse student body, but even here, newcomers stirred up rumors. No, you don't get it, Zix-9 persisted, lowering their voice in a whisper. It's a Deathworlder. A collective gasp rippled through the group, followed by uneasy laughter. Gra, a gelatinous being, shook with disbelief. Come on, Zix, the Academy wouldn't let a Deathworlder enroll. They'd wipe out half the students just by sneezing. It's true, Zix-9 insisted. I overheard Professor Sura talking about it. They're making an exception for some diversity initiative. Blowback snorted, sounding like a malfunctioning hovercraft engine. Great, as if mastering advanced xenobiology wasn't hard enough. Now we have to worry about being squashed to death during group projects. At that moment, the cafeteria door slid open with a soft hiss, and the room fell silent as a figure stepped in. Every alien eye, or its equivalent, turned to stare. The new arrival was tall by most galactic standards, with a bipedal form that seemed almost unnervingly balanced. Its skin was a pale pinkish brown, lacking the protective scales, exoskeletons, or membranes common to many species. 2 arms ended in 5-fingered hands, and atop its head was a mass of long, dark hair. Is that it? Graxa whispered, stretching to get a better look. Zix-9 nodded eagerly. That's the human. Her name's Sophia, I think. Sophia scanned the cafeteria, seemingly oblivious to the stares and whispers. Her gaze settled on the nutrient dispensers, and she walked over with purpose, causing smaller beings to scurry out of her path. Blowbacks, watching with a mix of fascination and fear, marveled at how easily Sophia maneuvered the dispensers, filling a tray with colorful nutrient cubes. Look how casually she handles those toxins. Graxa gasped. 1 drop of that red stuff would dissolve my exoskeleton. Maybe she's immune to poison, Graxa suggested with a shaky voice. Or maybe, Zix-9 added with a shudder, she likes it. The 3 friends fell into a tense silence as Sophia finished filling her tray. For a brief moment, it seemed like she might join them at their table, but at the last second, she veered off to an empty corner, sitting alone. Well, Blowback said nonchalantly, this should make for an interesting semester. Anyone want to bet on how long it takes before she accidentally blows up the lab? Little did they know, their lives were about to become far more thrilling than they could have imagined. Professor Sura's tentacles writhed with excitement as he addressed the class. Today, we start our unit on extreme environmental adaptations. To make things more stimulating, we have a special challenge. Nervous murmurs ran through the room. Professor Sura's definition of stimulating usually involved near-death experiences and mountains of medical paperwork. In light of our new classmate, the professor continued, gesturing toward Sophia, I thought we could do something a bit more rigorous than usual. Sophia, for her part, remained utterly unbothered, sitting at her desk with her data pad, as if this was just another boring lecture about mollusks and respiratory systems. Blowback leaned over to Zix-9 and whispered, 10 credits says she spontaneously combusts before the class ends. You're on, Zix-9 replied, though their antennae were trembling. Professor Sura cleared his throat, or whatever passed for a throat in his species, and activated the holoprojector. A barren, rocky landscape appeared, with violent storms swirling in the background. This is Nova Tartarus, Professor Sura's voice echoed with gleeful malice. A charming little planet on the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. It's a Class X death world, with temperatures ranging from -100 to 200 degrees Celsius, depending on the time of day. The atmosphere is a delightful blend of methane, sulfuric acid, and hallucinogenic spores. And let's not forget the native wildlife, most of which considers anything that moves a snack. The class collectively paled, or in Grax's case, became more translucent. Sophia, however, leaned forward, eyes alight with interest. "Your task," Professor Sura continued, his voice filled with sadistic glee, "is to design a survival suit that can withstand these conditions for at least 24 standard hours. You have until the end of class. The team with the best design will earn extra credit and, more importantly, my grudging respect." Pandemonium erupted as students scrambled to form teams, trying desperately to recall anything from their engineering classes that might help them solve the impossible task. Blowbacks, Zix9, and Graxa huddled together, their faces showing despair. "We're doomed," Graxa moaned, slowly melting into a puddle of anxiety. "Maybe we can design something that explodes immediately," Blowback suggested. "That way, death will be quick and painless." Zix9 was about to agree when a shadow fell over their table. They looked up to see Sophia standing there, a hesitant smile on her face. "Hi," she said softly, her voice unexpectedly gentle for someone capable of crushing titanium with her bare hands, as the rumors claimed. "Mind if I join your team? I think I might have some ideas that could help." The three aliens exchanged panicked glances. On one hand, teaming up with the Deathworlders seemed like a surefire way to become a cautionary tale. On the other hand, they were already doomed. "Well, sure," Zix9 stammered. "Welcome aboard the HMS Certain Doom." Sophia's smile widened as she pulled up a chair. "Great! I was thinking we could start with a multi-layered approach, something flexible for the inner layer, and," as Sophia launched into a detailed explanation about materials science that sounded more like magic than technology, her teammates listened in awe and terror. Blowback couldn't help but notice how animated she became, gesturing with her deadly hands as she spoke about tensile strength and heat dissipation techniques. "And if we use a mesh infused with extremophile bacteria, we can create a self-repairing outer layer," she concluded, looking at her teammates expectantly. Gra, who had partially reformed from sheer fascination, was the first to speak. "That's brilliant. But how do we handle the toxins in the atmosphere?" Sophia's eyes lit up. "Oh, that's the fun part. We can use a modified filtration system from Terran deep-sea creatures. Their gills can extract oxygen from water, and with some tweaks, we can." As Sophia continued rattling off increasingly complex solutions, her teammates found themselves swept up in her enthusiasm. Before they knew it, they were contributing their own ideas, pointing out potential issues, and refining the design. Time flew by, and soon Professor Sura was calling for the teams to present their designs. One by one, groups stumbled through half-baked ideas and desperate attempts at humor to mask their inadequacies. When it was their turn, Sophia stood up, datapad in hand. "We've designed a multi-layered survival suit incorporating nanomaterials, bioengineered extremophiles, and adapted filtration systems." She launched into a detailed explanation that left even Professor Sura's tentacles twitching with excitement. As she fielded questions, her teammates watched in amazement. This wasn't just a theoretical exercise for Sophia. She spoke as though she had already survived on a death world before. When the presentations were over, Professor Sura cleared his throat again. "Well, class, I must say I'm impressed. And slightly terrified. But mostly impressed. The clear winners are Sophia's team, with a design that might actually work, assuming any of you could actually build such a thing." His tentacles curled into what might have been a smirk. "Which brings me to the second part of your assignment. You will now attempt to construct prototypes of your designs using the materials provided. With a dramatic flourish, Professor Sura revealed several tables laden with odd materials, tools, and what appeared to be a vat of glowing ooze. Chaos erupted as teams stared at the materials in horror, while others made half-hearted attempts to assemble something resembling a suit. Sophia, however, sprang into action. "Okay, team, let's do this. Zix9, you handle the inner layer. Blowbacks, you're on nanomaterial infusion. Graxa, you take the filtration duties. I'll work on the outer shell." Before her teammates could protest, Sophia was already elbow-deep in the glowing ooze, mixing it with other materials with the ease of someone preparing a sandwich. They watched in terror and fascination as she fearlessly handled caustic substances, superheated alloys, and materials that emitted ominous clicking sounds. Sophia, Blowback ventured gingerly, holding up a piece of what might have been hyperdense fabric. "Are you sure you should be handling that without protection? It's labeled as highly corrosive." Sophia glanced at the warning label and shrugged. "Oh, it's fine. My skin's pretty good at handling this stuff. Besides, a little chemical burn never hurt anyone." Her teammates exchanged horrified looks as Sophia continued working, humming a cheerful tune while casually violating every safety protocol in the known galaxy. As the class period neared its end, most teams had barely produced anything resembling a suit. Some had managed partial prototypes, though they looked about as durable as wet tissue paper. Sophia stepped back from the workstation, wiping her brow with a hand that was now a concerning shade of purple. "I think we're done. Want to test it out?" Before anyone could stop her, Sophia had donned the suit and was heading toward the environmental simulation chamber. Professor Sura, caught between curiosity and the desire to avoid a lawsuit, hurried after her. "Sophia, while I appreciate your enthusiasm, perhaps we should run some preliminary tests first." But Sophia had already sealed herself inside the chamber and was fiddling with the controls. The rest of the class watched in horror as the simulated environment of Nova Tartarus came to life around her. Acid rain pummeled the suit, windstorms howled, and the temperature fluctuated wildly. Through it all, Sophia stood there, giving a thumbs up to her stunned classmates. After what felt like an eternity, though it was closer to 5 minutes, Sophia emerged from the chamber, removing the helmet with a flourish. Her hair was damp with sweat, her cheeks flushed, but she was grinning widely. "That was awesome," she exclaimed, bouncing on her toes. "Did you see how well the thermal regulation worked? And the acid just beaded right off. We should totally commercialize this design. Think of the extreme sports possibilities." The class stared in stunned silence. Professor Sura's tentacles had tied themselves in knots. Slowly, hesitantly, Zix9 raised a trembling appendage. "Sophia, you do realize that was set to full intensity, right? As in, conditions that would liquefy most known life forms in seconds?" Sophia blinked, glancing back at the chamber. "Oh, was it? I felt a bit warm, but nothing too bad. Why? How does it feel to you guys?" A long moment of silence followed, broken only by the sound of Graxa slowly melting onto the floor. Finally, Blowback found their voice. "Sophia," they said slowly, as if explaining something to a particularly dense child, "for us, that chamber is basically a really efficient blender, with lava instead of blades and acid instead of fruit juice." Sophia's eyes widened. "Oh. Wow. I'm so sorry. I didn't even think. I mean, on Earth, we have things almost that bad. Like Arizona in the summer or Minnesota in the winter." The class took a step back. Whispers rippled through the room. They lived on planets like that? With multiple death zones? Professor Sura, regaining some composure, cleared his throat. "Well, class, I think we've all learned some valuable lessons today about environmental adaptation, certainly, but also about the importance of clear safety protocols and species-specific risk assessments. He turned to Sophia, his tentacles still twitching. "Miss Sophia, while your design and demonstration were impressive, perhaps in the future we could focus on more universally survivable projects?" Sophia nodded enthusiastically. "Of course, Professor. I didn't mean to scare anyone. How about next time we work on something more relaxing? Like deep-sea exploration, or volcano diving?" A collective groan rose from the class. Blowbacks leaned over to Zix9. "I think we're going to need a bigger medical bay." As the students filed out, casting nervous glances at Sophia, Graxa finally managed to reform into a vaguely blob-like shape. "You know," they said thoughtfully, "maybe having a death worlder around isn't so bad. At least our grade curve is going to be amazing." Zix9's antennae perked up. "True. And think of the stories we'll have to tell at graduation, assuming we survive." Blowback sighed, all 7 eyes rolling in perfect synchronization. "Great. We're going to be the batch that goes down in Academy history as the year of living dangerously." Meanwhile, Sophia overheard their conversation as she jogged up to the group. "Hey, guys. I was thinking of hitting the gym later, to unwind after all that excitement. Want to join me?" The 3 aliens exchanged panicked looks, picturing crushed equipment and potentially lethal light workouts. "Oh, we'd love to," Zix9 began, antenna twitching nervously. "But we have this thing. Very important. Can't miss it." "Yeah," Blowback chimed in. "It's a meditation session for stress relief." Graxa, still not fully solidified, simply gurgled an apologetic sound. Sophia's face fell slightly but quickly brightened again. "No worries. Maybe another time. Oh, how about we have a study session later this week? I could share some survival tips from Earth. It'll be fun." As Sophia bounced away, her new friends watched with a mixture of terror and reluctant admiration. Did she just say survival tips and fun in the same sentence? Blowback whispered. Zix9 nodded slowly. "I think we've made a terrible mistake." Graxa finally regained the power of speech. "Well, on the bright side, at least we're guaranteed to pass Extreme Environment Survival 101. Over the next few weeks, the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology experienced a series of unforgettable events. There was the time Sophia accidentally shattered the unbreakable transparent aluminum window in the physics lab when she sneezed too hard. The resulting explosive decompression sent half the class floating through the Academy's zero-gravity corridors like very confused space debris. Then, there was the infamous cafeteria incident, when Sophia's innocent request for something spicy led to the creation of a condiment so potent that it burned through 3 floors before being contained. The new skylight in the principal's office was a nice touch. But perhaps the most memorable incident came when Sophia decided to join the Academy's zero-gravity ball club. Her enthusiasm was admirable, but her grace was less so. The resulting tangle of limbs, tentacles, and anti-grav units took 3 days and a team of specialized engineers to untangle. Through it all, Sophia remained cheerful and apologetic, seemingly oblivious to the chaos she left behind. Meanwhile, her classmates developed survival skills that would have made hardened space pirates proud. Zix9 became an expert at predicting and dodging Sophia's wild gestures, while Blowback developed a sixth sense for impending doom. Graxa perfected the art of instantaneous liquefaction, slipping through cracks at the first sign of trouble. As for Professor Sura, he found himself torn between terror and academic fascination. Sophia's presence turned every class into a potential disaster zone, but her papers on human adaptability were making waves across the galactic scientific community. It all came to a head during the Academy's annual Interspecies Cultural Exchange Festival. Each species was asked to present an aspect of their culture. The Zorons demonstrated their 17-step greeting ritual, while the Glixens shared their bioluminescent poetry. And Sophia decided to introduce her classmates to the Earth tradition of pranks. "It'll be hilarious," she assured her increasingly nervous friends, setting up a contraption involving water balloons, gravity manipulators, and a stuffed Earth animal called a platypus. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Blowback asked cautiously, all 7 eyes focused on the suspicious-looking device. Sophia waved off their concerns. "Trust me. Everyone loves a good prank." But not everyone appreciated the prank when it resulted in half the festival attendees being drenched in water, suspended upside down by malfunctioning gravity manipulators, and then swatted by a robotic platypus arm. The chaos that ensued was described by witnesses as a perfect storm of cross-species misunderstandings, physics gone wrong, and one human's misguided attempt at levity. As Professor Sura tried to restore order, Sophia stood in the center of it all, suddenly realizing maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all. In the aftermath, Sophia found herself facing the disciplinary committee. The head of the committee, a being composed entirely of shimmering light, began, "While we appreciate the unique perspective you bring, Miss Sophia, we feel it's time to address, shall we say, the disruptions that seem to follow in your wake?" Sophia nodded solemnly. "I understand, sir. I never meant to cause trouble, I just wanted to share my culture and have fun." The committee member sighed. "We recognize your intentions were good, but for the safety and well-being of all students, we've come to a decision." Sophia braced herself, expecting expulsion. "We're creating a new course," the light being continued. "Survival strategies for coexisting with high-gravity species. And we'd like you to teach it." Sophia blinked in disbelief. "Me? Teach it? Who better to teach survival than the one who's been unwittingly testing everyone's survival skills?" Another member chimed in. And so, Sophia found herself at the front of a classroom, facing a sea of nervous alien faces. "Welcome to Survival Strategy," she began mischievously. "Lesson 1. Always check your chair for whoopee cushions. Trust me. It's a life skill you'll thank me for later." As the class collectively held its breath, Sophia couldn't help but smile. It wasn't quite the cultural exchange she had imagined, but it was a start. And as she watched her classmates cautiously practice safe high fives, she realized she wouldn't have it any other way. After all, what was the point of being a Deathworlder if you couldn't use your powers for good, or at least for amusement?